It is Sunday, September the 14th, 2025, 1000 hours on the East Coast. This is Coffee with Frankie. And before we get started, for this week 2 of the NFL season, let's take a listen to the Frankie from Flatbush theme song.
Frankie from Flatbush rides the Brooklyn line. Got a swagger sharp like a vintage wine. Everybody knows his name from porch to stoop. Hustle and dreams in every loop. In the park he struts, hits the handball wall. Echoes hear the stories when the shadows fall. Got 1,000 tales and a confident grin. On the streets of Flatbush where legends begin. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near. He's got the rhythm, everybody cheers. Corner talks and sidewalk chalks his fame. In the Flatbush breeze you'll hear his name. Underneath the subway hum, the magic's real. Frankie's moves got that electric feel. From Atlantic Avenue to the urban hill, Flatbush Frankie's giving you a thrill. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Always on the go. Always on the go. Always on the go.
All right, it's Bills week. It's Bills week. Alan Dodge is here. Phil Adams is here. Hit the old like button, everybody. Sound check okay. Phil Adams says audio visual bell 100%. All right, like to hear that. The Dodester says, hey, it was awesome seeing everyone. And those who may not know, Alan Dodge was in attendance to the 34-32 loss to Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. A very sad loss. Came down to the end. 60-yard field goal. Up and good, and down go the Jetsies. We almost won. We counted as an almost win, Dodge. And you got to see everyone. Well, not everyone. You didn't see me, Dodge. I mean, you didn't see everyone. You saw Green Bean. You saw what? The Jeremy. You saw, who else did you see? Phil Adams checking in on Jeremy's physical condition. These are important things that we got to, consider when we're talking about fellow content creators. Hey, it's hard to stay in shape out here. Yeah, we got a lot of content to create. We got a lot of football to watch. Speaking of which, yesterday was a very interesting day in the ranks of college football. In case you guys missed it, there was a lot of very, very bad quarterback play. A lot of the quarterbacks that they're telling us are going to be so fantastic, well, they might be someday, but they're not right now. Whether it's DJ Alagway with your 5 interceptions and 2 other passes that should have been intercepted, Can you imagine if DJ Lagway had 7 interceptions? My goodness. And these people are making Zach Wilson look like Patrick Mahomes. Um, you know, I mean, there's just a lot of bad. I mean, Arch Manning played terrible against UTEP. That would be the University of Texas at El Paso. This is Arch Manning. How does he look bad? He's a junior. He's 21 years old. He's not 18 years old like Bryce Underwood on Michigan. He's not some young kid. He's 21 already. That's 1 year younger than J.J. McCarthy. And he's a junior, and he's a Manning. And he's on Texas with all the talent that Texas has. And he's still stinking it up against UTEP. UTEP! God's sakes. And that's really something to think about when, after his first game, if you remember, after Arch Manning's first game, and this is a very big lesson and big and important lesson in the media. People like Dan Orlovsky and all those idiots ran to the studio. They ran back to the studio to do telestrator issues and all 22 footage and all this to tell you, don't worry about Arch Manning. Don't worry about Arch Manning because, yeah, he played terrible against Ohio State, but Matt Patricia is the defensive coordinator of Ohio State, and basically Matt Patricia was really Bill Belichick. He's the greatest defensive mind who ever thought about a football. This Matt Patricia. I mean, don't ask the Detroit Lion fans about Matt Patricia and what a genius he is, but nonetheless, they would telestrate things and do all 22 footage to say, oh my God, the things that Matt Patricia was doing, he was changing the looks between pre-snap and post-snap. Nobody's ever done that in football history. Nobody's ever double-teamed receivers before. Matt Patricia just did all these things, and it really wasn't Arch Manning being bad as much as it was Matt Patricia being a defensive genius. Okay. Well, who's the defensive genius at UTEP then? Can someone explain that to me? Can someone re-underwrite all of Dan Orlovsky's excuses for Arch Manning now in light of UTEP? No one will do that. No one will do that. They will just keep deceiving you. But old Frankie's here to tell you the truth. Somebody's got to do it. It's really quite fascinating when you think about it. Arch Manning makes $7 million this year. $7 million to play quarterback. He was 11 for 25 against UTEP. 11 for 25 for 110 yards and 1 interception and 1 touchdown. I mean, this guy not playing good. And yet there are so many big money interests that need Arch Manning to be good. They need him to be good so bad. Can you imagine all of these corporate entities are just salivating that Arch Manning could be good in the NFL? Because they've worked with, Peyton. They've worked with Eli. They've worked with Archie. They even worked with his dad, Cooper. They call him Cooper. His name is Cooper. Family members call him Cooper. I don't know why. Cooper Manning, his dad. And they've, all these corporate entities have done commercials, many, many, many commercials that have been super successful with all those people, all of his relatives. So they want Arch to be good so badly. And you think those people aren't the puppet strings on people like Dan Orlovsky? Dan Orlovsky's a dancing puppet. Let's be honest. Dan Orlovsky's not a real boy. He's a puppet. He does what the money men, the money masters want him to do. And it's really quite funny to see and watch if you're someone like me. And I'm like, well, I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care if Arch is good or bad. It doesn't matter to me. I don't know. Seems like a nice kid. I hope he does well. What do I know? I like to see it before I start telling you this guy's going to be amazing. That guy's going to be amazing. I like to see it happen. I mean, the kid had played like 2 or 3 games his whole college career or something. And now he's the starter. He couldn't beat out Quinn Ewers last year. Quinn Ewers, remember, terrible. Quinn Ewers stinks. And he couldn't beat him out. So he waited a couple of years. Quinn Ewers graduates, gets out of there. Now it's his shot. He's a junior, 21 years old. You think, all right, he's had his development time. His name is Manning. He's tall. he can throw a nice spiral, so he's going to be good, right? Well, let's see. It's still young in the season. Maybe he'll improve. But the point is, when you have all these people running to the studio to make excuses for these quarterbacks, there's probably an agenda behind it. Matt Patricia is the greatest defensive mind in the history of football. Arch Manning couldn't possibly. And what was funny about that, I watched the game, and therefore I knew that Dan Orlovsky was not putting on his little telestrator all the times that Arch Manning had a perfect pocket and a wide open receiver and threw it at his feet or over his head, which is, kind of reminded me of someone named Zach Wilson, if you remember. So I'm quite familiar with terrible quarterback play. And yeah, there were some plays that, okay, Patricia did a nice job doing this or that. But there were plenty of other plays where Manning had a perfect pocket, no problems, had a wide open receiver, and he threw it at his feet in the dirt or over his head. And those are the plays that Dan Orlovsky didn't tell you about. And that is the point. They leave out the context. And that's how they fool you. That's how it works. Dan Orlovsky is a puppet. All right, so enough about Dan Orlovsky. Joe Mike is here. What are we thinking about actives? Oh, good point. Good question, Joe, because that brings me to something that I wanted to talk about anyway. The roster. Here's the screen. Let's take a look at what we got now. This week, we got a little bit of a curveball. Josh Reynolds is out. Got a hamstring or something. So Lazard will probably be active to take Reynolds' spot, so that's not a big deal. We all know that Asa Poll's going to be inactive, and Kene is going to be inactive because he's injured, has hopefully a minor injury, maybe back next week. That'd be nice. And Tufele is going to be out. So that really leaves it, and I think Woods will probably still be out. Now, we did call up Corey Black. That means we got to have 6 inactives this week, because Corey Black, in all likelihood, isn't getting called up to be inactive. So that means 6 other guys got to be. So Reynolds will be, Poll, I think Woods, Kene certainly will be, Tufele. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's the 6. I would bet Jelani Woods. And then it comes down to, so Taylor has to be active, right? Because we only have 4 here. And then it comes down to Braden McGregor or Tyler Barron. So basically, if you think about it, that's the choice. If Woods is inactive, let's presume that's the case. Because let's say he's still getting up to speed. We just got him a few weeks ago. So it really comes down to Barron or McGregor. In my prediction, which I put out on X, everybody should follow me on X. At Flatbush Frankie. I do lots of good stuff on X. You could check it out. I predicted that McGregor would be active because Tyler Barron was active last week and he only played 7 snaps and he didn't do anything like he didn't do anything in the preseason. So if you're only going to play him 7 snaps and he's not going to do anything, might as well give Braden McGregor a try. Remember, Jermaine Johnson played a lot of snaps in that game coming back from injury. Do we really want to push Jermaine Johnson that much? I mean, we want him to play a normal amount of snaps, but we'd like to have some substitutions available other than Michael Clemens. So that's what I think, and we'll see how accurate I am. We do keep track of this, and we do update this for the members of this channel. Feel free to join by clicking the join button under this video. Last week, I got it 60% correct. We'll see how much I get it this week. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. And then the practice squad, I was looking at the practice squad as well, and we're a little light on defensive linemen. All we got is Eric Watts and Peyton Page. So Jay Tufele apparently has an illness or something minor like that, so hopefully he's not too bad. But, if we were to have a few injuries, we'd have to pick somebody up because we only have Peyton Page and Eric Watts. And Watts is more of a edge, but he can play inside. and Peyton Page. So we've called up, last week we called up Tyler Johnson, and then we signed him to the active roster. So now he's on the active roster. So now these are the 17, and all we called up this week was Corey Black. For those who don't know, Corey Black is a cornerback with a lot of speed and a lot of experience covering kicks in college. So he was a 7th-round pick of the Giants this year. So he's a 7th-round pick. A lot of the scouting reports had him as a 5th-round pick. Giants got him. They really liked him. They thought they could sneak him through waivers. They were mistaken. We took him, or I guess they released him, right? Because Corey Black went to our practice squad. So I guess they thought they could release him and sign him back to the practice squad. I guess he went through waivers. Nobody claimed him. That's what it probably was. And they thought they could sign him back to the P squad. Now, why we didn't claim him on waivers, I don't know. But anyways, once he cleared waivers, we signed him. And they were a little surprised by that, the Giants, I guess, from the reporting. But nonetheless, now he's on our practice squad, and he gets the call up today. This is not a guy who's going to return kicks or anything like that. That's something we're going to have to find out about, since we cut Xavier Gibson. But he did get the call up, and I think it's to be on kick coverage. He did do that quite a bit in college, and they said he was very good at it, so we'll have to see. He is very fast. He ran a 4.35 or something like that. So he's got like 4.3 speed, so we'll see what he can do. So that's what I think about that. That's what I think about that. Jet 41, why does Arch have the same throwing motion as Uncle Rico? I don't know, man. It's funny that, Kurt Warner put out an X post about his mechanics, and I was like, it's such a shame that Arch Manning is so new to the sport because, he's really a neophyte. He has no idea about football. He's just like, if only there was like a passing camp that he could go to. And this was, of course, sarcastic because the Mannings have the Manning passing camp and are two of the most famous quarterbacks of all time. Those are his uncles. So I don't know. It's weird. This isn't some rando kid that had no guidance or, tutelage growing up. This is Arch Manning. It's like, what the hell? I don't know. If you'd think if anybody's going to be good at playing quarterback, it'd be Arch Manning, and who would be technically perfect, right? It'd be Arch Manning, but apparently not. Who knows what's going on with that kid? But this is why you probably shouldn't pay these kids $7 million to play quarterback in college. Yeah, Joe, I don't know what the deal is, honestly. But on the other hand, Joe, if you think about it, the pass rush wasn't the problem last week, really. Nor was the run defense. It was our defensive backfield, which we all thought was the strength of the team. So, Tony, whether it's Tiny Tony or whatever, I mean, I'm the one who was telling you guys over the summer, we need a safety, we need a safety, we need a safety. Justin Simmons is still out there. Lots of people still out there. We could sign them at any time, but this coaching staff. And here's another thing about the media. Remember Zach Rosenblatt's big, long article he wrote saying the Jets are leaning on this coaching staff to turn things around with these defensive backs. Zach Rosenblatt wrote a whole article about we might have the greatest defensive back coaching staff of all time. Really? Dre Bly doesn't have much experience. Chris Harris is a no-name nobody. Steve Wilkes seems to get fired a lot. And Aaron Glenn's a first-time head coach. Really? But, Rosenblatt wrote this whole long thing about how the Jets are leaning on coaching now to turn these people around. How's this working out? You need people. I mean, at least Muji and AG addressed the defensive tackle thing with Harrison Phillips and Briggs. They at least got smart about that. And look what happened. We played great against the run. I was talking about that all summer. We need defensive tackles. We need defensive tackles. We need defensive tackles. Well, at least they recognize that much. At least they recognize Noddy wasn't it. Got him out of here. Now, maybe it was the Byron Cowart injury that prompted them to do so, but whatever it was, they at least recognized it and made those 2 good trades. 3 good trades, really, if you could include Noddy. Um, but they might be leaning too much on their perceived expertise on how to coach the defensive backs. If a guy stinks, he stinks. I mean, we saw the same thing with Xavier Gibson. This is one of these things, and maybe this coaching staff will learn their lesson. But Xavier Gibson led the league in muffs and fumbles last year. And then they said, but this coaching staff said, yeah, but we've been tracking him in practice. And he's caught it 145 straight times. He hasn't muffed it once. Then he gets in the game, and what happens? 2 fumbles. He actually had 2 fumbles in that game. The one where he almost one of the ones he should have ran it in for a touchdown. We blocked it for a touchdown, and he fell down or tripped over his own feet. And then that wasn't bad enough. Nobody touched him, so he could have got back up and kept running. Instead, he gets up, throws the ball down, and starts to celebrate. Meanwhile, that's a fumble. And thank God Marcelino McQuarrie ball falls on it. But that is just dumb. It's boneheadedness. Like, there's so much wrong with that. And then later, he probably the most excusable one was the most costly, where a guy just stripped it out of his arm. But the point is that the fans were saying, this guy isn't good enough. We've seen it. And the coaching staff said, no. We saw him in practice. 145 straight times, not one muff. What's the problem? Then he gets in a game, and you see what the problem is. And so, it's something to watch, and it's something that's prevalent throughout the NFL, and it's kind of understandable. These coaches are very sensitive and very they overestimate their own ability to coach. And you kind of need to be that way to be successful in the NFL if you think about how competitive it is to be a coach. And so if you say somebody's good, you're never going to re-underwrite that opinion. This goes for scouts too. You're never going to re-underwrite that opinion based on new evidence. Now, maybe the coaching staff is learning a little bit. They did get rid of Gibson, and now they're bringing in some new people. We'll see how they do. So maybe they were a little slow. Maybe they were, but hopefully they're not like that. I mean, I think as a coaching staff, believing you could turn somebody into something, other than quarterback. Quarterback's a whole different story because it's a brain game and scheme and all this stuff, confidence and all these things. But other than that, really, a guy is what he is for the most part. Especially if he's got a couple of years under his belt and you've seen it. I mean, you're going to change him. Why? What's the evidence that Tony Adams is going to change? I mean, Tony Adams at best should be a practice squad player. I mean, he was undrafted for a reason. We got the man starting over here. And so, what are you going to do? You're going to change Tyler Barron. Tyler Barron was a bad draft pick. He showed nothing in camp. He showed nothing in preseason. He played one game and he showed nothing. He has shown nothing. You believed your scout. You believed your scout probably if you're Muji. We got all these new people, when it comes to the late rounds, we got to lean on the scouts. All right, the scout got it wrong, seems like. All right, well, admit it. I mean, Tyler Barron hasn't shown anything. If he can't beat the preseason people, what are the odds he's going to beat the regular season people? And so if that's the case, you got to bring in someone who's proven, who knows how to do it, like Jadeveon. Just for a year, then next year, we'll draft one in the 3rd round or 2nd round or something. We'll get somebody. Maybe a free agent will come in here, a real free agent, a longer-term one, or something. But, admitting mistakes, it's a tricky business, because if you keep admitting mistakes, then eventually the decision makers go, well, why are you making so many mistakes? Maybe we should fire you and get somebody in here who doesn't make so many mistakes. But on the other hand, sticking by your opinions and then you watch them go out there and be bad, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So, I understand that it's tricky. You got to play politics. Everybody's watching you, and it's a cutthroat business, and there's 10,000 people who want to take your job. I get it. So you got to protect your neck, as one of those old hip hop songs said. But you got to be very protective of your position because there's a lot of people who want to take it. And so you start admitting your mistakes a lot. The decision makers go, why are you making so many mistakes exactly? What's going on here? Are you dumb? What's happening? So I get that. But at the same time, it'd be nice if you could diagnose it first and say, nope, look at it. Zay Gibson, not good enough. Practice squad, fine. Emergency player to call up if you need one. Yeah, that's probably good for him. That's his role. You got to know where these people fit in on the hierarchy. Xavier Gibson should probably be in the NFL, probably, practice squad, roster fringe, backup. He's not horrible, but he shouldn't be your primary dude. He should be a backup. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if Tony Adams makes that one tackle, or at least just holds up DK on that one play, probably the whole game changes. Because that was a third down. They get out of, they have to punt. Their offense is feeling stifled, and bada bing, bada boom. In the NFL, that's what it comes down to: 1 or 2 or 3 plays, and you're either winning or losing. That's the way it goes. You can't afford to have these things, and it's all the people that we talked about all summer, and the roster's not good enough in this area, and then bada bing, bada boom, what happens? Very annoying. But nonetheless, all right, let's go now to let's see what the Jet beat writers are reporting. Well, one of the beat writers is reporting that Micah Parsons could have been a New York Jet. So this came out over the last couple of days. This came out over the last couple of days. But Gary Myers, longtime football writer, now has a radio show. I guess they can't find anybody else other than these old fossils to get a radio show to. But anyway, Gary Myers, a longtime writer for one of the papers, now has a radio show, and he had an interview with Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones said, "Yeah, I called up the Jets to see if they would like to make a trade. I did not call up the Giants," he said. Of course, they're in the same division. But I called up the Jets, and we had a discussion about maybe Micah Parsons going to the New York Jets. And he said, well, at the end, we had a great visit, but at the end of the day, the Jets didn't have the resources to get it done. Now, Gary Myers, I listened to that interview, and he was asking leading questions. So it wasn't that Jerry Jones told him, he just didn't say, hey, Gary Myers didn't say, hey, what happened with the Jets? And then Jones told him, well, we were talking about Quinnen Williams and a couple of ones, and the Jets didn't have resources. Gary Myers was asking leading question. That's one of the ways the media people fool you. It just so many different ways to deceive. And so he was leading him. He said, would it be fair to presume you were talking about Quinnen Williams because you were trying to get a defensive tackle to help your run defense, as you've said in the media? So would it be fair to presume that you were talking about maybe Quinnen Williams going over to Dallas? And so that's a leading question. And Jerry Jones, of course, never one to shy away from, an opportunity for, getting some headlines going about the NFL, stirring up some intrigue and some, juicy headlines. He's a marketer at heart, really. Said, yeah. We were talking about Quinnen. That's what we were talking about. And so the idea was that, the Jets would send Quinnen Williams and 2 first-round picks, and then they, of course, would have to sign Micah to a big, huge deal. And you remember he got $47 million from the Packers. And then Connor Hughes said that he thinks it wasn't really the Quinnen part. It wasn't the 2 picks. It was the $150 million guaranteed. Micah was going to get a $200 million contract from the Cowboys that was verbally agreed to, with $150 million guaranteed. that's been known for months and months. Connor Hughes is reporting it as if that's new. It is not. Another way the media fools you. It's been known and reported specifically by Mike Fisher and others that this was the deal that the Cowboys had on the table, and they thought they had a verbal agreement, and then that's what led to months and months of unhappiness, uneasiness, playing around with the agent. The agent told us to shove it up our ass, Jerry Jones said. And this is David Mulugeta, the number one agent in football, by the way, not some rando. So everybody knew that, and then Hughes put out something saying it was the money that tripped up the Jets. They didn't want to go to $150 million guaranteed. And I did ask Country Club Connor Hughes on X whether that was sourced or whether it was his opinion, because he didn't say in the tweet. And so he has not responded to me. Country Club has not responded to old Frankie from Flatbush. But whenever possible, I do try to hold the media accountable. I do my best. I'm Frankie from Flatbush. There's 26 people here watching a live stream. There's not much power I have. I have 212 followers on X. Nobody cares what old Frankie says. But sometimes they respond to me. Zach Rosenblatt responds to me sometimes. Dennis Wazak will respond to me sometimes. Dick Chimney never responds to me. I often comment on Rich Cimini's tweets, but he never, ever responds. Country Club, maybe he's responded to me once or twice in a few years. But I do try to get because the way he wrote the tweet, it was not clear that the information he was providing, whether that was sourced or not. So I just wanted to know, is this sourced or is it your opinion? I think that's an important question to ask when it's not clear as written. But I'll give an update if he ever responds. But what do you guys think? Micah Parsons could have been a Jet. Let me know in the chat what you think about this potential trade. It would have been Micah Parsons and $200 million, $150 million guaranteed at least, for 2 ones and Quinnen Williams. That would have been the trade. All right, so the chat is pretty quiet about that. So you guys have no opinions about Micah Parsons becoming a Jet? What? What's going on? You guys need to drink a little more coffee. It's time for caffeination with Frankie. Let's all get a little caffeinated. In songs they often say, let's get high. But they never say, let's get caffeinated. You wonder why. I don't know. Caffeine is the drink of the gods, I think. So no comments about Micah Parsons potentially becoming a Jet. What is going on with you people? Wake up, chat. All right. I guess you guys don't want to talk about Micah Parsons. That's surprising. I thought that would be a popular topic. Let's shows you what I know. Shows you what I know. All right. Let's move on to Dick Chimney's column today. Why not? You guys don't want to talk about Micah Parsons. Do boo boo be doo. Here's Dick Chimney's latest column this morning. New York Jets rookie class makes history in debut. We made history, everybody. Perfect attendance. It's much too early to stamp the 2025 draft class as a success or failure, but it's already unique in this respect. All 7 draft picks played in the season opener, a franchise first in the era of the 7th-round draft since 1994. Right tackle Armand Membu, tight end Mason Taylor led the way in front-line roles, hardly a surprise. The rest of the class contributed mainly on special teams, although wide receiver Arian Smith, safety Malachi Moore, linebacker Kiko Mauigoa, and defensive end Tyler Barron did see action on a handful of plays from scrimmage. The only one to play exclusively on specials was Azareye'h Thomas. Disclaimer: this doesn't mean the class is destined for greatness. So much of rookie playing time is based on roster composition. Jets are in the midst of a youth movement creating opportunities. That said, the Jets have majored in rebuilds over the years, and yet this was the first time that every draft pick contributed in week one, which is certainly noteworthy. They came close in 2022 with 6 of the 7 picks active in the opener. Membu garnered praise for his debut. No sacks allowed, 1 quarterback pressure, and no penalties. I think it was 0 quarterback pressures, but could be Actually, it's 0. This is wrong. But different organizations chart this differently. PFF had it as 0. He was particularly happy with his performance against TJ Watt. I think I played pretty solid, said Membu. I had a good run blocking. When I had my one-on-ones, I was able to win them. Pretty cut and dried. Membu apparently overcame a serious case of pregame jitters, according to Justin Fields, who said he and Quincy were able to calm the rookie's nerves. The rookie to watch in the coming weeks is Moore, whose role could be expanded if safety Tiny Tony Adams, 3 missed tackles, doesn't tighten up his game. Tiny Tony needs to tighten it up. New reality. Even though Coach Aaron Glenn said he wasn't trying to send a message, the decision to release wide receiver returner Zay Gibson after a costly fumble, well, he had 2 fumbles. One was more costly than the other. Well, really, the first one, he could have just got up and kept running, but so that was costly, but certainly showed that he's trying to raise the accountability level. This was an issue in 2024, according to one player, Anonymous, who remarked at the end of last season. See, he brings up a quote from last season. Accountability was definitely the weak point of our team. The player said there was a lack of consequences for those who messed up. Glenn is changing that. He made a lot of great plays for us, but the expectation here is to do your job, Wilson said of Gibson, and that's the reality of this sport we play. It was obviously tough for some of us to see that, but it's part of the game. The stakes are high. With that, I don't want anyone to see this, take it the wrong way. That's just what's being asked of us from our staff. In some respects, Gibson was an easy cut. He barely made the 53-man roster coming out of preseason, and he had no guaranteed money in his contract, meaning the salary cap ramifications were minimal. Life after X. Without Gibson, the Jets must break in a new punt returner and kickoff returner. On Sunday, they faced the Buffalo Bills, who acquired their return specialist from the Jets. Remember Brandon Codrington? He was terrific in the 2024 preseason, but they traded him to the Bills because they didn't think he was better than Gibson. Wrong. Now Codrington is one of the best returners in the NFL. Where's the evidence of that? Poor journalism. Poetry in motion. First-time offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand is hoping to build off an impressive debut. 32 points, 394 total yards. Jets OCs aren't accustomed to putting up those kind of numbers in any game, let alone the first one. The last one to reach 30 points and 300 yards in his Jets debut was Chan Gailey in 2015. That was 4 coordinators ago. Tony Sperano's first game in 2012 was a smashing success, but things went south and the Jets finished 28th in scoring that season. Engstrand used a creative running scheme heavy on pre-snap motion. They used some form of motion on 73% of all plays, 7th highest rate in week 1 per next-gen stats. More importantly, the plays worked. They averaged twice as many yards per play with motion compared with no motion. 3 of the 4 touchdowns came on motion plays. This is a significant uptick from last season when the offense was criticized for being stale and predictable. Former quarterback Aaron Rodgers was never a fan of pre-snap motion. Big Bang is back. Engstrand said the goal is at least 8 explosive plays per game, defined as a pass play of 16 or more yards and a run play of 12 or more yards. The team recorded 11 last week, the Jets' most in a game since 2021. Shotgun friendship. No one on the Jets knows Bills quarterback Josh Allen better than Harrison Phillips. They were both drafted by the Bills in 2018. Phillips described his close friend as the ultimate competitor, saying Allen wanted to win at everything they did off the field. Cards, fishing, archery, you name it. I don't know if I've ever beaten him in anything, Phillips said. Even calling shotgun to a car, I never beat him. On the hot seat, cornerback Brandon Phillips is looking to rebound from a shaky opener after being the worst cornerback in football last year. 5 receptions, 75 yards, 1 touchdown as the nearest defender, plus a pass interference penalty and a dropped interception. Wow, couldn't have gone worse. The Jets, however, gave him $23 million as a free agent, so they're not about to bench him, but the coaches want to see better awareness when the ball is in the air. That was the knock on him last season with the Ravens. the Ravens, who, of course, are not exactly a terrible team. I'm still a big Brandon Stevens fan, said coordinator Steve Wilks, often fired man. Last word, the Bills have won 5 straight AFC East titles over that span. The Jets are 6-24 in the division, worst in the league. Enough is enough, according to Tiny Tony Adams. It's time to win the division, the tiny man said. It's time for things to change. That's what Glenn always preaches. It's time for things to change. Okay, tiny man. Now, going back up here to the offense and how we do it, one of the things that we'll be taking a close look at is all of this. All the personnels that we're doing, all of the everything else that we're doing, we're going to keep track of it, of course, with our drive charts live on the Green Bean channel, as well as the defense. And we'll take a look at Fields and all of his throwing as a passer and see how he does. And we'll keep track of all of that. All right. Well, that's all I got. Let me know if you guys got anything else. Otherwise, we'll call it short for the day. Which is always possible. All right. Well, I'll see you guys over on the Green Bean channel for the game at 1 o'clock. And I'll